After Merkin leaves her father's presence, the rupture between them does not settle into distance or calm, it expands. What replaces confrontation is not reconciliation, but a silence thick with consequence. This silence does not soften Haydar Yildirim, it sharpens him. In his world, silence is never empty. It is a signal that something has shifted, and Haydar understands immediately that the shift is not in his favor. He does not follow Merkin. He does not call after her. He does not attempt to pull her back through persuasion or emotion. Haydar has never believed that loyalty is restored through gentleness. To him, loyalty is enforced through structure, fear, and dependency. What unsettles him now is the realization that these mechanisms no longer function where Merkin is concerned. Her rejection is not emotional, it is final. For the first time, Haydar confronts the reality that his authority over his daughter has collapsed not gradually, but completely. This is not a wound he can heal through time or intimidation. It is a loss of position, and in Haydar's understanding of the world, position determines survival. He retreats inward, not to reflect, but to calculate. The kidnapping of Ates, which Haydar once framed as a decisive act meant to restore balance, now reveals itself as a destabilizing force. It has not silenced threats, it has multiplied them. It has not secured loyalty, it has fractured it. By crossing that line, Haydar has not proven strength, he has exposed himself to dependency. And dependency in Haydar's world is unforgivable. This realization drives him toward Nazir. Nazir has always existed at the edge of Haydar's operations, not fully trusted, not fully controlled. Their relationship was never built on shared values or loyalty. It was built on mutual benefit and mutual silence. Each knew just enough about the other to be dangerous. Each relied on the other's discretion to maintain stability. But now stability is compromised. When Haydar meets Nazir, he does so with the confidence of habit. He speaks as though this is a routine adjustment, a minor complication. He frames Merkin's defiance as emotional confusion, temporary and correctable. He implies that family matters will resolve themselves. Nazir allows him to speak. He listens without interruption, without reaction, without visible judgment. This silence is deliberate. It is not patience, it is assessment. Nazir understands immediately what Haydar refuses to acknowledge. Merkin's choice has altered the structure of power. When Nazir finally responds, he does not address Merkin at all. He addresses exposure. He tells Haydar plainly that the problem is no longer about control, it is about risk. Merkin knows the truth, Ates knows the truth. And truth, once shared, cannot be erased through force. Threats may suppress action, but they do not erase knowledge. Silence, Nazir reminds him, must now be purchased at a higher cost. This is the moment Haydar understands that his leverage has weakened. Nazir does not threaten, he does not accuse. He simply outlines consequences with clinical precision. He explains that Merkin's loyalty was not just emotional, it was structural. As long as she stood with her father, she functioned as insulation. She absorbed suspicion. She deflected scrutiny. She softened perception. Now she does the opposite. A daughter who stands with her husband against her father is not merely disobedient. She is destabilizing. Haydar resists this framing at first. He insists that Merkin will not betray him. Nazir does not contradict him. Instead, he asks a single question. Would you have believed this a month ago? The question lingers. Haydar has no answer. What follows is not negotiation in the traditional sense. It is recalibration. Nazir informs Haydar that silence will continue but not under the previous terms. The profit split changes. Control is diluted. Haydar must concede territory he once considered untouchable. Each concession tightens Nazir's grip while loosening Haydar's. Haydar agrees, not because he trusts Nazir, but because he understands that refusal would invite exposure. This is the true cost of crossing moral boundaries. One act of violence does not end conflict, it creates obligations. Haydar has become bound to the very man he once believed he could manage. Nazir delivers one final warning before they part. He tells Haydar that Merkin is no longer under his protection or his control. Whatever she chooses to do now will not be filtered through loyalty. This statement is not cruel, it is factual. And it cuts deeper than any financial demand. Haydar leaves the meeting diminished, though he refuses to acknowledge it as loss. He tells himself that power can be reclaimed, that loyalty can be enforced. But beneath that certainty lies something unfamiliar: instability. For the first time, Haydar senses that the systems he relied upon may not bend back into place. While Haydar clings to control, Merkin collapses inward. Her departure from her father does not bring relief or empowerment. It brings grief. Alone, away from confrontation, she is forced to confront the magnitude of what she has done. She has not merely challenged her father's actions. She has severed the emotional foundation of her life. In the quiet that follows, memory overwhelms her. Merkin finds herself revisiting her childhood not as nostalgia, but as interrogation. She remembers the father who once embodied safety, the man who stayed awake beside her during illness, who carried her when she was too weak to walk, who filled their home with warmth and laughter. She remembers small, intimate moments, the way he spoke to her, the way he protected her from fear. These memories do not comfort her now. They destabilize her. She struggles to reconcile them with the man who ordered a kidnapping and justified torture. The dissonance is unbearable. She wonders how both versions can coexist. She questions whether her father changed or whether she simply grew old enough to see him clearly. This realization fractures something fundamental inside her. Merkin mourns not only betrayal, but innocence. She mourns the version of her life where trust was uncomplicated, where love did not require justification. She realizes that what she has lost is not only her father's moral authority, but her belief in the simplicity of right and wrong. Her grief is quiet, consuming, relentless. She does not scream. She does not collapse outwardly. She withdraws. Her body continues to function, but her mind circles endlessly around the same questions. How does one reject a parent without rejecting oneself? How does one grieve a man who is still alive but morally unreachable? She understands now that choosing morality over loyalty carries a cost no one prepares you for. There is no comfort in being right when being right means standing alone. There is no celebration in refusing complicity when refusal results in isolation. And yet, Merkin does not waver. She does not soften her stance. She does not attempt to rationalize her father's actions to ease her own pain. Instead, she accepts the loss fully. She understands that preserving her moral boundaries requires surrendering the version of family she once believed in. This acceptance marks her transformation. Merkin is no longer protected by innocence or denial. She steps fully into responsibility not for her father's crimes, but for her own refusal to excuse them. She understands that morality, once claimed, demands endurance. It offers no shelter. The parallel between Merkin's internal reckoning and Haydar's external maneuvering is deliberate and devastating. Where Haydar responds to exposure by clinging harder to power, Merkin responds by letting go of illusion. Where he compromises ethics to survive, she sacrifices comfort to remain intact. These opposing responses define the trajectory of the story. By the end of this movement, nothing explodes. There are no arrests, no confrontations, no visible consequences, and yet everything has changed. Power has shifted, loyalty has fractured, childhood has ended. The conflict is no longer about a single crime. It is about the cost of crossing lines and the different ways people live with that cost. Haydar chooses control, Merkin chooses conscience. And in doing so, they ensure that reconciliation is no longer possible.